But a lot of us have gone to clinics like this, and um, what comes to mind for me is the last one I went to. We were in Helsinki at the Worlds, and a couple different folks, Chad and Tom Allen and Todd Wake did what we're about to do. And as I listened to them, I thought, there's kind of the scientific engineering anal setup part of doing a clinic, and then there's more of the real life sort of sailing a boat side of it. And seeing that I'm not a technical guy, and I don't put a lot of stock into having that part of the equation return to results. I'm more of a seat of the pants sailor, and more of I respect having the boat set up right, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I encourage you to ask me questions about boat setup. But that's 20% of it. 80% of it is using your main sheet as your gas pedal, is to knowing when to change gears. And that's sounds simple to say that, but that in real life, that's a hard thing to get through. I would say that the results from the boats that are consistently doing pretty well, they know how and when to change gears, and they can identify whether that be how hard the team's hiking, in other words, the breeze. There's a couple things that I'm going to try to mention today that I use that help me make sure the boat's set up right, so I don't have to think about that part, and I can just think about the next wind shift and weight in the boat. So a couple things that I'm ultra anal about when I'm sailing are making sure that the jib wire's correct, making sure the boat's being sailed efficiently, and when I say efficiently, I'm talking about both the heel angle of the boat and that your sails and your settings are correct. And then the third thing is to not worry about, during a race, if your blocks and then your lowers are right. Okay? I just want you to just not worry about that. The last big regatta I did was the NAs. It was over a week, and in varying conditions, and maybe once I moved one block, and maybe I moved a shroud, and maybe I moved it the wrong way. Okay, so at the Worlds in Finland, I don't know if I ever changed the rig, ever, and we had varying conditions. So the point of that is, and the reason I bring it up is a lot of people ask me, well, how much pre-bend did you sail with today, and how much lower tension, and how much this, and how much that. They're measuring stuff that I've never measured. And I respect that because they're getting it probably really right. But if your goal is to try to do better in each race and try to be maybe top 5 at a regatta or top 10, that stuff's only going to get you so far, and it might end up driving you so crazy in here that it ultimately is a negative. So again, what I want to focus on today and how I get there is forestay tension. I don't care what jib you use or what setup. I should say your jib wire tension. The changing of gears throughout. When we go out sailing, it's blowing 5, and through the race, it's now blowing 10, 11, 12. And then we get into some key numbers, 13, 14, where all three, you're looking, and your whole crew is hiking. There's got to be a gear change there because that's a critical step. And then as we get windier, the reality of it is we don't sail a ton in over 18. I mean, if we really think about it, we don't sail a ton in, say, 20 knots or above. And a lot of times we're not sailing a ton in below 5. So we're sailing in 6 to 15 the majority of the time. Not all the time, maybe not tomorrow if we were to sail, but Sunday, we're going to sail in that. We might start in 15 and end at 6, but there's going to be gear adjusting going on. Maybe even both days, but certainly on Sunday. So before and when I mentioned going to that last clinic in Helsinki, it was a technical clinic. It was very numbers and blocks and looking at lines like in there. I mean, for me personally, after 10 minutes of it, I'm like, I'm like, you know, your head is so in the boat looking at it all that right there is a sign to me that you're on the wrong track. Spend so much time focused on the boat setup. Do it once. I do it like in May. And then I'll do it again when I go to the Southern Circuit in March to make sure that when I was trailing the boat, stuff didn't change. I will tell you how I do it, my setup, and I'll just do that right now. Just so I use the Proctor sails, although this weekend for the first time I'm using Fishers. So I'm sailing the Jeffers Lightning, and that's what they have. So it'll be interesting. But Fishers, a lot of wire tension. You know, it's a lot about the wire tension, less about blocks and shrouds. How many people use the Proctor setup here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, so 5, so a few. Okay. It's not going to be drastically. It's not like we're sailing. You know, it's not drastically different. Okay, but for the Proctor setup, I use 45 inches on the forestay. I don't wonder if I should go to 44 in this regatta. I'm going to try this. I just go to 45. Okay. I set the uppers at 250, and thankfully Matt Fisher's here today, and uses Fisher sails. He's a world champion. He's a multiple NA champion. He's a phenomenal sailor, one of the best guys I've ever sailed against. So if I need to talk a little bit about the Fisher stuff, I'm going to have Matt talk about it. But again, this is not about the technical side, so I just want to set the basis. 45 on the uppers, on the forestay. Everyone knows where to measure that. You can look at the tuning guide. 250 on the uppers. Then with the partner blocks in, I should say, then I put in the blocks and I block it on the heavy side of 1 inch, because we all know it's like impossible to get exactly with the blocks. So if I had an error, I err on the side of greater than neutral than less. So on the heavy side of neutral, on the heavy side of 1 inch, 1 inch of pre-bend. I put 250 pounds on the lowers, okay, and from there I'll go down 6 turns to where you're sailing like 2 people sitting the leeward. It's really light, drifting. So that's 6 turns down. So the middle of 0 and 6 is 3. So 3 is where I just set the boat up, and that's where I live, and that's where I sail 80% of the time, is at 3. So 0 is 6 turns down, 3 up, and then 6 turns. Now, if it's blowing 20, if it's really windy, what I'll do is I'll go back almost to neutral, maybe to 1/4 of an inch of pre-bend, and I'll take a turn or 2 up on the lowers to take the slack out of them and make sure that when I'm trimmed up, they're not slacking. As a matter of fact, what ends up slacking is the upper a little bit, because you have so much lower tension on.
Question. So you started at 250, and then you took 3 turns off? You started at 250 on your lowers. And
250 on the lowers, and I took 6 turns off.
6 turns
No
off.
backstay.
No backstay.
Did you? No backstay.
No backstay.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you ever.
Now again, we can go down a road to nowhere, and and I'm just telling you how I do it.
So I'm just.
Yeah.
Did you ever check your lowers after your 6
No.
turns off to know what that was?
No. I don't check forestay tension. I don't do any of that.
Oh, you
stuff.
don't do anything.
No, I don't. I just got to be honest. I just don't do it. I'm sure there's value to it. I don't do it. I just keep it as simple as what I just said.
And one other thing, and this is like when you get the head state, you get the mass and your blocks, no sails out. Then you go to the 250 on the lowers.
250 on the lowers in the parking lot.
And then move the 6.
And then I would go down to. I really just go to now. I just go to 3. But I know so when I live at 3, if you're going to go sailing now, it'd be at 3. then
3 off, you're saying?
3 off.
Yeah,
Then you can
from
go
250.
3 up or 3 down.
Yeah, then I just say, hey, where are we? We're at +1. Okay, so that's it. That's 1 on. You know, you just simplify it with your own language on your boat. We're +2, so we have 5 turns on. I mean, if you just get to 3 and just do plus or minus, just to keep it simple. So usually we sail at 0 to +1, maybe +2. That's usually where we're sailing in sort of 10 to 12, 13 knots of breeze. So that's it. I'm measuring. That's all I'm gonna. We could talk about this forever, and it gets us nowhere. But that's as simple as I keep it. I just do that, and I don't measure anything else. I see people measuring the forestay tension and the backstay tension, and I'm sure there's a lot of good value to it. I don't do it.
So there's nothing in the tuning that you measure the forestay with the set amount of backstay, like what you do natural?
I don't.
No.
I mean, I know there's ways to
Yeah.
do that, but I don't.
Alright.
How I got to those numbers was from years of sailing regattas or practicing, knowing when we're going fast, and sailing and tuning against people that I think are the best. And then you're like, this feels really good. You come in, you measure the boat, and you look at your notes from the last time or the time before, and you slowly get to a place that's proven because you've done it. So that's that. If you go down to 0, I put maybe a little bit more pre-bend in, maybe one of those 1/8" blocks. If it gets real windy, I'll go back to, as I said, maybe just forward of neutral. So I just live life right in there, real. I don't go to 1¼ pre-bend. I don't go to below neutral or negative pre-bend or whatever. I don't even know what you call it. Right in there, okay? So we can all do that, and that's just boat setup. I think the part that I wanted to talk about today that a lot of you all had asked me questions about is that gear changing. That is so critical to me in sailing the Lightning at a high level and competing against guys like Chad and Matt and his and hers. I mean that's a gear that they have is from going through that. And the question I'm asked a lot is, let's just say we go out sailing tomorrow and it's blowing 10 knots. So 10 knots, are 3 people hiking at 10 knots?
Depends on how heavy the team is.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say that it's, I sail usually, 460 pounds or so. We're probably hiking. We want the boat to be flat and powered up, so we're probably hiking.
I would say if it's smooth water, yes.
That's good. Smooth water, yes. Lumpy water, not as much. But
And our wind's lower, it's not going as fast.
so the question is to really focus in on that gear changing. Hey, we were doing so well in the first meet, we went downwind, and then I never saw those guys again upwind. It's that feel, and people have heard me say this before, that I never cleat the main sheet. That is mostly true. I cleat it when I have to readjust the main sheet in my hand, and then I uncleat it again. You as the skipper getting the feel for when the boat is sailing well through the water, and using your main sheet as a gas pedal is critical to get that feel. The skipper's the one who has a tiller in their hand. They can feel when there's weather helm. Weather helm is horrible.
Shut it.
Had to bear off a little bit.
Shut it up.
You really need to identify when you have that weather helm and to change the gears through that. Okay? What I mean by that is when you're sailing the boat and you start feeling a little weather helm, try to adjust. You have a few adjustments you can make to reduce the weather helm and reduce drag on the boat. One is your backstay, your outhaul, Cunningham, flattening they all have to do with flattening the sails. And one of the key ones is wire tension. Because wire tension does a few things when you pull a lot of it on. One of the key things it does is it flattens the jib. Okay, it flattens out the jib. It spreads out the distance between the luff and the leech, hence flattening the sail. And it also keeps the forestay from bobbling around, and it really settles it down.
When you say wire tension, are you referring to the actual wire, or are you referring to the jib tension?
The wire that's inside the jib.
All right.
So yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So the wire tension.
I'm new to this, so.
No, it's good. That's a good question.
The
And
answer maybe is the jib halyard.
jib halyard.
All right.
Here's where I think a few of us go, and I'm guilty of this too, is just be going right. Like I'll say to someone when I'm off the boat, you know, pull more jib wire on so it matches your forestay tension, okay? And you could pull forestay on 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6, and it's still matching your forestay tension. In other words, it's not S-ing, the forestay is not S-ing through. So I think a huge error that a lot of us make is we don't sail with enough wire tension. Okay, we just don't. We think we're matching them because it looks matched. They look like they're the same. Well, how can it be then you pull 3 inches of wire on and they're still matched? Okay, so you're not sailing with enough wire tension. That, to me, from my observation, that's the number one mistake people make. I would recommend to you to pull too much wire tension on. Obviously, this is when it's a little bit windier, but pull too much wire on. Because guess what? You can go around the leeward mark. By the time you get your backstay set where it should be, and everyone's hiking, let's just say, travelers down, and the forestay's still S-ing, and the forestay's S-ing through. Okay, you can just you can just ease the wire off a little bit and match them. So it's the same reason why I start with 250 on the uppers, because that's a number that I know sitting in the parking lot. If I go to 6, I'm at 250. I know where I am. What's that ad about baby seats? Don't think you know you know. And I think about know you know where you are. Don't think and hope and pray that you might be right. You can control this. So if you pull wire tension on, if it's windy, to a point where you know it's imagine us front crews. You're pulling wire on. You know, you got to know where that max wire number is and mark it. Whether you mark it on the line, which sometimes gets chewed and frayed, or if you I recommend on the mast, so that when you start going upwind, you know where that is. That's a critical measurement when it's breezy, and that's where there's a lot of, I'll say, separation in the fleet as it gets windier. That's where you're going to see a little more separation as opposed to it blowing 5 knots. Okay. So what goes to my mind is, and I'll even say to Sarah and I are sailing this weekend, but we've sailed together in the past. If it's breezy, I'll say, she'll get to the mark, and I'll be like, just pull more on. Like, I don't know how much more, but you can't pull enough wire on, right? Just pull it on until it's, and we'll ease it if we need to. So that's one thing I want to impress upon everyone is put on more, I don't care what jib you're using, or what sails, put on more wire than you think, especially when it's windy, and just ease it off, because it's a lot easier to ease it than to pull it in, right? Forward cruise, you got your feet braced against the pin rail. You're like, come on, you're getting yelled at. It's horrible. Your skipper asks you to ease it, you can just reach in and ease it. It's simple. Next thing is, I get asked once in a while, okay, well, beyond that, you have the Traveler, Cunningham, and backstay. I'm also a pretty big believer of just pulling a fair amount of outhaul on, especially if you're lighter. I would err. A lot of kids err on not enough outhaul. I always tell them to put on too much outhaul. They're usually using older sails. but make sure your outhaul's tight. You almost see overbed wrinkles on your outhaul itself. If the sail's standing up proud, you know, kind of like there's no shape in it. It might be a little too tight but tight. But then you have the more critical ones that you adjust a lot are your Traveler, Cunningham, and your backstay. Okay? Now, backstay is a sticky wicket because your forestay and your backstay they're kind of, if those two can talk to each other and be in harmony with one another, that's kind of critical. For me, if I'm sailing around this weekend and we're 3 up, not hiking very hard, but we're 3 up, so it's blowing 10 to 12, and it starts clicking to like 13 or 14, and I start feeling helm, the first thing I do just to kind of get immediately settled in is I put the Traveler down a little bit. Putting the Traveler down a little bit is immediately going to help with your helm, okay? Immediately. Backstay, you know, the other things are going to help, but it's going to take a little while to get the adjustment right, to get the helm right. Your trav down's immediately you're going to feel relief, okay? So I might do that immediately while I pull on more Cunningham or get the backstay to a position where I like. My backstay have marks, so I have a coarse tune like many of us do and a fine tune. You know, again, I try to keep stuff simple, so I have everything marked. So I know exactly when I are coming to the leeward mark where to pull my coarse tune onto, and then when I go upwind, depending on the breeze, I'll go to a mark. It's just a relative mark, so you kind of know where you are. Same can be said for your jib sheets. You know, I have marks on them, so you just kind of know where you are in a range. Marking is really critical. Unless it's on a piece of tape, then it's tougher. But I would recommend not this. But that's just me. You could sew a piece of line through it. That's what a lot of people do. You know, when I was coming here, you know, people talk about a sail like an airplane wing, right? And I was watching them. I flew here today, so I was over a wing. I was like, oh yeah. So, you know, think about the sail. You know, it as an airplane wing because it really acts like that. You know, when the plane's sitting on the ground, he puts the flaps down so you can create some lift. And then as the plane gets going fast, those wings come in, the sail gets nice, or the wings get nice and flat. And it's no different than on a sail. You know, if the wind had a color to it, like say it was blue, and you could see the wind coming off the leech of the sail, it would be really helpful. You know, when we're trying to build speed and generate speed, you know, you want to have a lot of shape in the sail. But then as soon as the boat gets going, you want to make sure your sail plan is very efficient. When it's breezy, you know, most of us sail with this. If it's breezy and you struggle a little bit in the breeze, it's probably because your sails are too full. Both your jib, because it doesn't have enough wire, and your mainsail, because the sails are built with a lot of shape in the sails. You can see just if you look at the leech of this sail, there's a lot of shape built into the sail. So you need to flatten that sail as it gets windier to have a very efficient flow of wind exiting the sail. And that's critical if you think about wind entering and exiting both sails. You want it to enter efficiently and you want it to exit efficiently. And that the exit part is critical. Does anyone have any questions on that part? Does anyone have any questions at all? Because I should probably stop.
No, keep going.
Yeah, one thing, I think proper sails, the jib, when you raise them, sometimes will touch the spreader. So you have to start with the backstay at a certain area, don't you?
When like lighter wind, when it hits
the spread or whatever. So do you always start your backstay at a certain point?
Well, if it's light air, I take the slack out of the backstay. And usually when you get your forestay right,
It takes care of that.
it takes care of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say that in the lighter air, in the conditions you're talking about, I would be a little careful about having your wire tension too loose, which could add to that problem. The sails are pretty, even the jib has a lot of shape built into the sail to begin with. So even in those conditions, I'll sail with a little bit tighter forestay than looser. Almost with a little bit of an S going through it, tiny bit.
Okay. That's right.
What's the point of having, this is going back a little bit, but what's the point of measuring your forestay if you're just going to put up the jib wire anyway? There's pretty much no point of measuring that in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, why even have a forestay?
Yeah.
So like when you're on shore here. That's really all about getting the rake set right on the mast.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, obviously your forestay is not doing a ton when you're sailing upwind, and it's not really doing anything downwind, but it does set your rake. The rake.
But if you put more wire tension on it, it's going to bring your rake forward.
Chad?
So,
No, it's okay. Chad designed it. Without getting too technical. Forestay length at 40, like, let's go to an extreme. Like, why do you even have to have a forestay on the Lightning? Let's just,
Well, you're talking about pulling more wire on than I generally talk about. Generally, I figure on the headstay with the wire and the jib pulled so it's supporting it well between the tabs. So I think I'm using the headstay more than David's talking about.
the point I really wanted to make, though, is on what Chad's saying is, for sure, there is load on the forestay.
yeah.
My point was, I think that many of us don't sail with enough jib wire tension, and I asked you guys to try it this weekend. Just pull on wire so that they both look to your eye even, and then just pull on another couple inches, and to your eye they're still going to look even. That's my only point to that. It's hard to know if your only grounds are, I pulled it so it was even with the forestay, and I still can't point. So let's just say that was the verbiage. That I just want there to be, pull on too much and back it down. That's all. And I'm sure there is load on the forestay still.
All right.
Yeah. I was going to talk a little bit about downwind sailing too, because a couple people. Yeah.
I just want another question while we're on that stuff.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so if I always have trouble with too much helm, so I'm at the point where I'll let my traveler down, try to ease my main and out, but we're still on our ear, or it's so eased I'm not going anywhere. So my thought is maybe.
What's ease? The main sheet?
Yeah, the travel's all the way down, and I'm playing the main, but I don't feel like I'm going very fast. So my thought is, could it be that I didn't have my mat, I had too much pre-bend, or I had my lowers not tight enough, or how does that go together?
Yeah. So it's tough. I think that do you ever bang sheet? Do you ever?
Well, that's another question actually. I keep the bang on very hard. I don't know if that's not so good.
In all conditions, or just?
No, when it's windy.
Yeah.
When I can't get the main in. If I put the bang on real hard, then I can play the main. But I don't know if that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bang, like I like to bang sheet. I think that I think bang sheeting, my Jody, we disagree in this. She does it a little bit differently, but
I'm surprised.
so again, there's multiple ways to skin the cat. I like vang sheeting because it keeps tension on your leech, and it just allows you to. Vang sheeting is what's important about vang sheeting is you have to be, to me, very very physical with the main sheet. You know, when you get a big puff and you ease out, you don't want to bear. You want to keep your heading, but as soon as that feeling at all that you feel like you're not overpowered anymore, you have to sheet it back on. I think it sounds to me like you don't have enough wire on it. I mean, that's what when you're first described that.
Oh. So not so much a matter of the pre-bend or how the mast is set or the...
Yeah, I mean,
or the
pre-bend.
Well, bring the mast back. I heard Larry McDonald said once at a seminar.
Well, he's a big no pre-bend guy. Like he goes to neutral. He goes to negative pre-bend.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and he does great. That's why I'm saying this. You know, you can get 5 guys up here or gals, and they'll all tell you a different way. He's a no pre-bend kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's on the Cunningham. He'll pull on so much Cunningham. His ring is like down to the gooseneck. He pulls on so much Cunningham. He really is a big proponent of ultra flat sail. Ultra flat. A lot of backstay, a lot of Cunningham, no pre-bend.
Yeah.
A lot of lower tension. You know, real flat. Yeah. I am.
That part.
Yeah.
Really your reflection.
Well, yeah, it was a regatta.
And that works for him. You know, that's what he's used to. But the key there is what I like about what he does is he really flattens out the sails. And I think if you work on flattening the sails out, tons of Cunningham, really flattening the sails out, you'll find it so much easier to sail the boat.
Oh.
I think that the biggest problem biggest thing we could do better is sail with a flatter sails when it's windy.
David, can you talk about the actual trimming of the jib?
Yeah.
Different conditions?
So the jib trim, who's doing the bow?
Oh, wow.
So just real quickly, this boat has 2 marks that don't make sense to me.
Different winds.
I have a mark on mine. I have a mark on this fixed part. Right here. This is fixed. And on the part that's moving. Okay? And again, it's a relative mark, but let's just say you're trimmed perfectly, whatever, you're at when the 2 are lined up. So this, or you might say, if I have my kids on board, I might say, trim it so it's like 2 inches away from the mark. So this moving mark would be here. Just say, or I might say, put it at the block. So these are just relative marks. But I would put 1 mark in here, and 1 mark with it trimmed in here. So you could it's really nice. Your crew they can come around a little mark. They can go to a certain spot that they're used to. They know it's about right, and then trim it in the rest of the way. I don't spend a lot of time up here, but I ask a lot of questions about where's the jib, like every 30 seconds. And we're very active on jib trim as I am on the main sheet. I just get like this feeling inside me when stuff's pleated too long that it can't possibly be right. So I always feel like there's energy that needs to be released and then trimmed back. So Jody she'll have a mark, she'll have those marks, and then she'll have a mark here somewhere that I can see well. So I'll know when I look about where she's trimmed. Like you just get used to the marks on your boat. Mm-hmm. So when she says she's trimmed in 2 inches and I see the mark there visually, I don't have to ask her many questions anymore because I can just follow along here. I can just follow along with where she is or where whoever is sailing. She doesn't sail with me anymore, but so marking there, marking. We talked about marks in the backstay. I would imagine that's like 1 inch in and 2 inches in. Is that right?
So
2.5.
So I'm a pretty big proponent of when you come out of tacks, you're down speed to be out, at the tip or further, depending on how windy it is. Also, the main sheet, if you know that old saying, when in doubt, let it out, I think is critical. And then I was going to mention somebody that asked me downwind. They asked me about the board. I'm actually starting to sail with the board up a little bit more than I used to because enough, from sailing against Conte a lot, the Argentinian who's won like every regatta he sailed in. Yeah, we've been close. We've tied, but he sails with the board a little higher than I was used to. So he's sailing. So now we're sailing with like maybe a good 12 inches or plus of the sharp part of the board showing, trailing edge. The other thing that I learned from Tito a long time ago when he beat us in a Worlds is when it's breezier, I think it's really important to have your forward crew hiking hard to leeward. So if you're going downwind, really hiking hard to leeward. If you have twings and you want to jibe, you have to give that person a little extra time to get into the boat, under the twing, get themselves organized to jibe. You can't just decide to jibe with the poor soul hanging out hiking the leeward. I learned that lesson.
Is that why Jody doesn't sail with you anymore?
So hiking the leeward. The other thing is I think that in general we all sail with too much fang downwind. This is another thing I learned from Tito. And Conte has verified it just from watching his leech. Again, not when it's blowing 18, but if it's lighter, when it's blowing like 7 to 13, 14, I think that most of us sail with too much fang. I think you want to like on the laser and other boats, you want to let the top of that sail kind of breathe a little, let it fall off. It's pretty restricted with how far it can go out to begin with because of the shroud. But Jody and I have done a lot of testing in this boat on boat, and the end of the day, until you start feeling like you're really unstable with your crew hiking up to leeward, at that time you need a little vang to steady the boat out, okay, to kind of keep the boat steady so you can really work on the waves. But when it's kind of that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the stuff we sail in a lot, I would recommend less vang, not no vang, less vang than you've been sailing with.
How are you judging that?
Well, now I just look at it and I can just tell. But how I got there was from off the boat on a motorboat with Jody sailing her boat and vice versa. I think that when it looks to your eye that it's falling away and it's not.
Are you talking about the top back there?
Yeah, top bat. Yeah, I'm talking about the top of the sail because, from the numbers, just below the numbers down, that's not the part you're controlling, and that's, the shroud's in the way. I'm talking about from the sort of the lightning bolt up and really the top bat and up. So just try to sail with a little less in that lighter condition. I don't think it's gonna. I think too much hurts you more than too little in sort of 10 knots of breeze with the bang. If it's blowing 20 knots, if it's windy, then you have to have bang, and you'll know it. You'll know because the boat will be very unsteady. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention about upwind sailing that I think is important to keep in mind is skippers. You're the one who can feel the boat, and I would just challenge you to try to sail the boat with, you know, you asked me, I've done, your girls are out there with, my girls. All my 3 girls are out sailing together. They weigh 210 pounds.
I know.
And these are your words, and they're keeping the boat flatter than I can. And I'm like, well, that's because they are, of course, they don't weigh anything, and they're only this long. They're tiny girls.
Notice that.
Jody sets up the boat for ultra flat. You know, a lot of backstay. Because she knows she's going to use a lot of backstay, you have to have a lot of lower tension, virtually no pre-bend for that setup. A lot of wire, really flat sails. And that just allows a 210-pound team to sail the boat relatively efficient.
Doesn't go negative on that.
I don't think she does. But at the junior NAs this summer, Sabrina, my daughter, sailed, and I pulled her stuff on shore. And I felt bad because there was so much backstay on night. It was too much. It's like, so that was too much. But I pulled everything out before she left the beach because I didn't want her to worry about it. It was kind of breezy that one day. I swam half the day. Trust me.
We know about it.
Yeah, I was on the bottom of this baby.
Thank you.
So, if we have some good breeze this weekend, we're sailing, try to pull stuff on tighter than you normally would, more wire and a little more backstay, and make sure these aren't dangling. If you're 3 out hiking, these should be tight.
You don't have any jiggle in it.
Dare I say that if anything breaks, it should be the upper. Okay, let the upper, it's okay. That means the top of the mast is falling off a little bit. That's good. That's what I experience. That's what, on my boat, if it's blowing 20, we're out hiking, we're going fast through the water. These are not breaking, and these are.
I got a question, Dave.
Yes.
How much tiller pressure are you sailing with?
Don't tell him.
Very little. I tried it. You don't want it neutral. I mean, that's not enough. You need some helm. But I'm sailing with very little helm. Little bit of weather helm, but not much. Very little. What I do is, you can watch. I keep the hiking tiller on my lap, so I can feel it, how much I'm moving it around. So. What I do is, man, hang on a second. Wow. I can't even make this up.
We're gonna hold you in.
Somebody needs
Here,
to be
let me
there
hold-
for you.
First, you hold that. So what I do is, okay, let's see, hang on a second, I have another wire here. Okay. What I do is I kind of keep it on my lap. And I'm hiking the lure here. I kind of keep my lap, and I just kind of, I can just feel it on my leg. I think it's, and I know how much I'm moving it around, and that's just a good way to keep your body tight, keep everything close together. Just like that. And as Chet asked the question, I know it's incredibly, anytime Chet asks a question, it's incredibly loaded, but very little weather helm. How about you, Chet? How much do you use? How much weather helm? How much helm?
1 3/4 to 2.5 pounds.
Matt?
What did he say?
1.5 to 3/4 pounds of weight.
I think flat as you can get. I mean, as bad of a stick as you can get. I think, and that just means and it depends on the wind conditions. We try to have a neutral helm. Maybe a touch weather at times.
The other thing I always tell the kids is, you want to sail the angle of heel the same in almost all conditions. So whether it's blowing 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 20. Ideally, you want the angle of the heel always to be the same. You want to make sure you're achieving that same angle of heel, which is very little heel. Okay, if it's blowing 4 or 5 and you're in Annapolis, huge chop, you have more heel, yes. But in general, if you think of it as a laser, you know, the laser mat, Matt just sailed the laser world, you generally want about the same angle of heel in all conditions. Is that a fair statement?
Flat.
Flat. Okay. Are there times you want to heel the boat a little bit? Yes, because of for a variety of reasons. But in general, you want to keep, when you're looking over the deck, you want to keep it about the same angle of heel in all conditions. Does that make sense?
Can I ask one question before you go downwind? The jib where you, the marks on the spreader tip most of the time or in most of the time? Just on your jib.
Before you go downwind?
No, I'm just saying going upwind. I was saying before you get to the downwind talk.
Oh.
Can I ask you one more last question upwind?
Yeah, I would say most of the time between the tip and 2 inches. And
Okay.
Between the tip and 1.5 inches. I mean, 2 inches in, 2 inches plus is we're in flat water, we have good speed, and we just kind of want to burn some of that. I mean, we want to sail high. So you trim the sails in real tight when it's real flat water, and you can just kind of burn some of your speed off by going high.
When you come off the starting line, should you pull it in a little bit to try to hold the lane? Will that help you on lane holding?
I would say that, you know, that I would say a minute and a half or a minute, I would work really hard on getting a hold to lure.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend less time immediately after start trying to hold the lane.
Right, right. But if you
But
jam in
let's
there.
just say you have to hold the lane. But I want you to think about what I just said.
Yeah.
Work harder on not having to hold the lane.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah, because then you don't have to worry about it. But
That's
let's
right.
just say you had a whole lane right after the start. You know, that's just not a perfect answer to that question because it's variables. But
Right.
let's just say you can't tack
Mm-hmm.
and you can't bear off. You have to sail until you have an opportunity.
Right.
You know, I would try to live my life sailing as low as I can sail
Mm-hmm.
without going into this guy.
Okay.
In other words, if you just trim in hard, holding a lane, you're just going to stop.
Yeah, and he's going to walk out on you.
Yeah, you're just, other bad stuff will happen. I would just sail as fast as you can sail, even if it means you're sailing
Down to
eventually into the back of this guy. You know, you're just off his hip, and I wouldn't try to just live it. I would just err on coming down. You got to keep the boat going fast,
Right, boat speed.
and just be ready for that opportunity because it's going to come. Because there's other people, especially at the start, who have to tack.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Do you ever look at your jib leech telltale?
Do I ever look at my jib leech telltale? I do not.
Do you, Chad?
Do you?
Does your
That's an interesting answer because your brother told me he thinks that the window in the main is in the wrong place.
Well, he does all the time.
He must be looking.
He look, yeah. Well, you didn't ask does Tommy look at it. You asked if I look at it. I ask him, "Are you good with your jib?" And he'll say yes or no, or this is why. But if the answer is, do I personally look at it? I don't. I do look at the top telltale on my main, not that one. And so downwind, it sounds like we.
Maybe you kind of already did this in sections. You kind of go through puffy conditions and all. Like what you have people calling down the puffs, and then do trim it at the same time, and equally, what are the first things you look for when you get a lull, crew weight wise, or to keep the boat powering after a lull goes in?
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that. I mean, what Matt just asked, that's really the nuts and bolts of going out here and gaining or losing separation with other people. That gear change and especially if it's conditions. I think Matt's talking more about sort of 5 to 10 knots type weather, which we normally would see at this regatta. A lot of that. You know, if it's enough to enter into if there's enough at the high end to enter into forestay, pulling on the forestay a little bit, pulling on the wire tension, that would be in play. But I would say in practicality of sort of what Matt's referring to, we're using our crew weight and we're adjusting both sails. And as you go into a puff, you know, again, I don't complete the main sheet, so I'm always adjusting 2 inches. And I'm ultra anal. I'm sure Sarah's looking forward to it. I'm ultra anal about the jib trim being absolutely just right. You know, so if I'm sailing with someone I don't sail with a lot, I'll say if you're sitting up here and it gets lighter and you need to get in the boat, you also better be easing 1 inch of jib as you go into the boat. Okay? And if you're going to go to leeward, you might have to use a hair more. If a puff comes 3, 2, 1, and you're going from in the boat up to the rail, you're probably also trimming 1 inch or whatever it is with so that jib trims as your body weight changes. That jib's coming with you. Okay, that's pretty critical. I mean, Sarah, do you remember sailing with me? It's a lot of jib trim. It's a lot of anal.
Ultra anal.
Just the jib trim is, you know, the trimming of both sails at all times to me is critical. I can't imagine anyone should have the jib cleated for more than, I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds before it's probably not quite right. You know, it's probably, whether there was a duck, a wave, a situation where it was lighter, it was heavier, there was a shift, okay? Sometimes if there's a big wind, if there's a wind shift, like we'll see, and it's a lift, I'm not just gonna push the tiller into that lift. A good jib trimmer will ease the jib slightly, talk, communication. You know, depending on if it's lighter, we'll sit in the boat, steer the boat up into it, and then trim back into it. If there's a huge header, okay, you can hold the jib, okay, as the boat turns down. You don't need to be easing the jib because you keep the jib in tighter in a header. That'll help bear the boat off, quite frankly. I mean, think about it. If you're sailing without a rudder and you want to bear the boat off, how do you do that? You pull the jib in and you ease your main out. And conversely, the same as the opposite is true when you want to head up. You want to pull your main in and ease your jib out. So I guess that's the crew adjusting the sails. Anytime the crew moves, the sails probably should move. So think about that this weekend, especially if you're at the bow. You're going from this position to that position to up on the deck. Make sure you're adjusting this. Okay, maybe not when you're actually, you know, make sure you're stationary. Make sure you're not jerking around too much, but it's got to be moving around.
And the intention there is to keep that 2 inches on the spreader?
Say that again.
You're moving around the jib sheet and you're still trying to achieve about 2 inches in from the end of the spreader?
Yeah, I mean 2 inches in is pretty tight. That's like you're fully power your sailing, but if you're maneuvering, I would say that I would rather you err on the side of it being out a little too far than in too far. You know, on the tip. And here the tip a lot. Where are we? We're at the tip. You know, I just think that in that sort of 5 to 10 mile an hour range, that you can hit your jib too tight. One thing I've learned again from some of these good guys is, you know, they're sailing the boat with a little more angle than I used to sail the boat. Like they sail the boat with more of a planing angle than just sailing dead downwind. And you know, I kind of learned that, you know, again, Conti, you know, taught me a lot about how to sail lightning. He comes from a 470 background. He's gone to a bunch of Olympics, a lot of planing. So he sails the boat with a lot more, making sure he's up on a plane, and he's just always living life on a plane. He's not plowing downwind. So tightening up the angles a little bit, not a ton, a little bit, is something that started doing more of. Anyone have any other questions?
On the downwind, are you using all your tensions, the backstay and the bang?
Yes. I have a mark on my course, which is, mine's right here. I have a mark. So, before, during a setup, I got it so so the mast doesn't go forward, right? But yeah, I pretty much ease everything. Cunningham for sure. Outhaul depends on how windy it is, but generally the outhaul. And the key one is the backstay. I just have it so it's not too tight, but not sloppy. So I'm gonna have Lenny, and again, I'm gonna be around all weekend. I'm gonna be around for the next couple hours here. So if you wanna look at something on your boat or talk about something more in depth that I either didn't mention or just skipped over, especially on gear changing.
I have one more question, Downwind. Do you like to sail it flat or one keel one way or the other?
The question is, do I like to downwind? Do I like to sail it flat or heel it to weather or to leeward? And it really depends on the conditions. In Buffalo, on that, I think essentially would end up being the last day. When you're doing some of that VMG sailing in waves, I end up heeling it to leeward and just kind of powering through. If you're sailing, on a lake, a small lake, and it's, if Greg was here, and maybe Matt too, you could sail with more weather, heeling it to weather, which I do a lot. In flatter water, I think you can get away with that. I think that's a fast mode. You got to be good at it, and I'm not.
If you have good wind or...
Well, I think good wind or even lighter air. You can sail with heeling it to weather in flatter water. I think if it gets lumpier, that doesn't work as well. I think you want to just want to sail, in 20 knots, you just want to sail flat. Flat and, on a plane. That's really what's going to make a bigger difference. But again, I think that bang tension is, I've noticed that a lot of people sail too much. So